What you heard right there was a little piece of Imagine by John Lennon. In this week's lesson, we're going to take a look at the chords and the claw picking pattern that we use throughout this song. If you guys want more information, jump over to allforuke.com where I have a full song sheet put together for this song that includes all of the techniques that we use throughout this video. So grab your ukulele, get tuned up, and let's get started. First things first, let's take a look at the claw picking pattern that we're going to use throughout this tune. So there's a full video for this picking pattern on the channel, so if you want to check that out, go for it. But I'm just going to do a quick review of this right now. So to do the claw picking pattern, I always put my pinky on the base of the instrument to stabilize my hand, and with my thumb I'm going to be plucking down on the C string, and then with my index and middle finger I'm going to be grabbing the E and A string and simultaneously plucking these bottom two strings. There'll be an alternating pattern in the video where I actually move up and do the pattern on the top three strings, but for the most part we're going to be using just the bottom three strings here for this pattern. So let's try to play this pattern together nice and slow so you can kind of get a feel for it before we start looking at the chords. So we're going to start with our fingers and then go to our thumb. So here's the beginning of the pattern. Okay, now you try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... All right, we're going to break this song down into 3 sections. So this is section 1. This is the beginning of the song, or the verse of the song, where each verse starts with Imagine, and this first verse starts with Imagine There's No Heaven. The chords we're going to use for this section are G, and that's played index, ring, and middle finger here. Or I'll give you a second option for G, and I'll show you why. You can also bar the bottom three strings with your index finger and put your middle finger on the E string on the 3rd fret. It accomplishes the same thing. I'll show you how that works when we get into playing it. The second chord is G major 7, and that's just index finger on the C, E, and A string, so it should sound like this. And then finally the C chord, which is just one finger on the 3rd fret on the A string. That should sound like this. You could use your ring or your middle finger for this chord. Let's take the chords and the claw pattern and put it together and show you how this section sounds. We're going to start on the G chord, and we're going to pluck that 3 times with the claw pattern. So starting with your fingers first, 1 and 2 and 3 and. Then we switch to the G major 7 and we pluck that 1 time. And then finally the C chord and we pluck that 4 times. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So let's try that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that basically is going to repeat for every verse. So really work on that switch between G, G major 7, and C. I'll show you really briefly here a little trick that I've put together for switching from the G to the G major 7. I showed you this version of the G chord earlier where you bar the 2nd fret. So if you bar the 2nd fret and put your middle finger down here on the E string for the G chord, you can play the G chord 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and then just remove your middle finger and you're playing G major 7. So that's a nice little easy switch to get you to the G major 7, and then you can go to C from there. So try it both ways. See what works better for you. Either option is going to sound the same, but sometimes the trick is a little more helpful to you. So there's a real simple riff that takes place in the chord progression that I'm going to show you really quick here. So you guys all recognize that from the song. So what we're going to do is, sorry for the little British accent there. I've been listening to a lot of Beatles songs lately. You're only going to play the C chord 3 times rather than 4 times in the progression here. And then you just add in this really nice, easy riff is just open E string, and then 1st fret, 2nd fret. So it sounds like this. And you can just use your thumb to pluck those. So that's the little riff that takes place that you can intermingle into the verse section. Hey you, thanks for watching these videos. If you guys like what you're watching, make sure you click that little subscribe button below. Oh yeah, and that little bell too. Click on that and you'll get notified when we keep putting videos out each week. All right, moving on to section 2. Now this is the part of the song where he starts saying, imagine all of the people. Let me play through this section for you and then I'll show you how to do it piece by piece. Here we go. Okay, so there's a little riff and there's some claw picking going on here. So the first chord we'll use for the section is E minor. So it's played like this: index, middle, and ring on the A, E, and C string. So there's your E minor chord. The next chord is A minor, and because we're going to keep the claw pattern on the bottom 3 strings, and the A minor's on the top string, we don't need to play anything, so you can just play open. Nice and easy. Now, a little change in the claw pattern. We're going to shift the claw pattern from the bottom 3 strings to the top 3 strings when we go to the D chord. So for the D chord, we play middle on the G string, ring on the C string, pinky on the E string. Should sound like that. And we'll be plucking that 3 times. The next chord is a D suspended chord. So we take this D chord and then we're going to shift our pinky finger from the 2nd fret to the 3rd fret. So the chord will look like this and sound like this. So you have middle on the G string, ring on the C string, pinky on the E string for the D suspended. And then finally we have a D7 chord, which I play with middle finger on the top string and ring finger here on the E string. And that sounds like this. So let's take it slow through this section. So we're going to do 4 times on the claw pattern on the E minor. So let's try that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and A minor 4 times, open strings. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, so now we move to the D chord. Now, when we start playing on the top 3 strings, we're going to shift the claw pattern from the bottom 3 strings to the top 3 strings. So our index and middle are plucking the middle 2 strings and our thumb on top. So for the D chord, we're going to pluck that 3 times. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and... Then we move to the D suspended. So we push our pinky out to the 3rd fret, and we're just going to pluck the middle 2 strings 1 time. So from D to D suspended, we go 1 and 2 and 3 and pluck the D suspended 1 time. And then the final chord is the D7. And I just like to take my thumb and drag that right across the strings to play that chord and let it ring nice and open. So let's just take a look at the D suspended D7 move that happens there, nice and slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and pluck, strum. Now the little riff that you'll hear in the song, I'll show you guys how to do that as well. So that riff happens right at the end of the section, and it takes us into the third section. So it's a cool little riff. If you want to keep it simple, you don't need to add the riff in there. You can just stay with the claw pattern. But for those of you who want to take it a step further, I will offer up this little riff for you. So we've played the D chord here. D suspended, D7, and then the riff is that little thing right there. So what I'm doing is I'm sliding my ring finger. You can slide it from the 5th or the 3rd, wherever you'd like, but your aiming point here is the 7th fret. And make sure you guys are checking out the song sheet. Just go ahead and go to All For You, print that out, and have it next to you when you're working on this lesson. It'll make a lot more sense. We're going to take our ring finger, slide it up here from the 3rd or 5th to the 7th fret, so it's so that's the first note. The second note is on the 5th fret with the index finger, and then we go ring finger on the 7th, index finger on the 5th. So nice and slow. 7, 5, 7, 5 on the E string. So try that nice and slow. One more time. 2, 3, 4. And that's the little riff that takes place at the end of section 2. Okay, let's play along together on the second section here. So I'll count us in. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. 2. All right, let's take a look at the third and final section. So I will note here that the claw pattern is going to alternate on each chord that we do in this section. So we're going to start here on the C chord. So this section starts with the lyric, "You may say I'm a dreamer." So ring finger here on the 3rd fret. We're going to play that twice. The claw pattern. We switch to a D chord, and the claw pattern moves up to the top 3 strings, and we pluck that twice. Then we move the claw pattern back to the bottom 3 strings for the G chord. We pluck that twice. And then our final chord, which we haven't went over yet, is B7. And B7, the simplified way of playing it is ring finger on the 4th fret, G string, middle finger on the C string on the 3rd fret, and index finger on the E string on the 2nd fret. And we pluck that twice. So let's go through that section again. So C, D with the claw pattern on top, moving the claw pattern back down to G, and then back to B7 with the claw pattern on top. So spend a little time before we do the play along and just work on alternating the claw pattern. So a good way to do that is just to don't play any chords, Just sit there and move your claw pattern from the bottom strings to the top strings. And that'll help you kind of get the mechanics down before you start worrying about moving the chords. So now that we had a little chance to go through that, let's take a look at this and play it together. We're going to do this 3 times in a row. So I'll count us in. Let's get going. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 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 then the final thing that happens here as it kind of fades in the end of the song is it plays that same part of the section except that it excludes the B7 chord at the end. So for the ending of the song, you play C, D twice, and then you just go back to the G chord. And essentially you're doing part 1 as the song kind of fades away. Okay, now that you've had a chance to work through each section, we're going to put the whole thing together in a consolidated format. So once again, print out that song sheet from allforuke.com and get that in front of you. Basically, we're going to start with the second verse, go into, which is section 1, go into section 2, which starts with Imagine All the People, and then into section 3, where it's You May Say I'm a Dreamer. All right, let's play this together, nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Imagine there's no heaven. Two more times. Here we go into section 2. Imagine all the people to the D chord. 2, 3. And the riff to section 3. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. One more time. Then the ending, C, D, back to G. Kind of fading out with section 1. Thanks for watching today's tutorial on John Lennon's Imagine. If you guys want to enhance your experience, make sure you grab the song sheets that I put together for these songs over at allforuke.com. They're free, and I promise they'll help you with these lessons. Make sure you subscribe and leave comments below. We'll hopefully get back to you soon. Thanks again for watching. Take care.